Welcome back. Next up, we have CyberA and Reputelligence. Rachel works in is a cyber talent from Nigeria, and Dom is a self-confessed cyber dinosaur with 30 plus years experience in the field. He also presented at IsolationCon2 last year. They'll be talking about brute force phishing, how not, how correctly, and why phish. But poetic. Dom, Rachel, over to you folks.
Thanks very much. Okay. So, Rachel, are you ready?
Yes, I think I am.
Perfectly. So, let's head into this session. So, I do hope you enjoy our session today. We are your hosts, Rachel and me. I'm working now for a while together with Rachel in a mentoring relationship. We did have some follow already this year on another conference, and now would like to talk about phishing, what you should not do, and also bring you over some of our experiences around phishing. I think it's a fascinating topic. Of course, it's part of social engineering. And Rachel, let's introduce yourselves quickly, and then we can move on.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel, as you've heard several times now. I'm a hacker and cyber speaker as well, aspiring cyber speaker. This is the second time I'm speaking at a conference, so forgive me if this is a little nervous. Anyway, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me. Done?
Yes, thanks very much, Rachel. I just wanted to say thank you to all the organizers in the back, Cybers2, TMCH, and all the sponsors, of course, which make a conference within a very short time frame possible. I think it's fantastic. It's also fantastic that you are actually collecting money for a charity. I think it's awesome. I do really love to contribute to those type of conferences, and since I was with the conference last year, I really had a blast. Fantastic. Thanks very much to the whole team. I know how much effort it is from both sides, speaking, of course, working in the backgrounds and making everything possible and being online all these long hours for the audience, so you can hopefully enjoy the session for today. I really like to talk about phishing, and I wanted to go into the topic of phishing, let's say from the least technical point of view, I guess. I'm a bit worried about the content I'm sharing with you. It's not so much into a very specific hacking technology, into a focus area. But it's more like the other end of life, I guess, because there's a part of life which is eventually boring, where you earn your money, you get ends meet every day. And then the rest of the time is like the projects you can do, which are just totally awesome, or you're pursuing your private avenue of, let's say, developing tools and other things as well. So this session is actually meant to be like being educational about phishing, also incorporating everyone which is maybe new to the topic, but also give you maybe an outlook, let's say, from a consultant's perspective or from an internal CISO's perspective. How do you phish? How do you phish safely? What can you achieve actually with phishing? And what is behind when you do planning? I do phish quite a lot in recent times, and funnily enough, there are a lot of banks I'm doing phishing initiatives. When we started to do professional phishing with larger corporations and enterprises, we were surprised that we had a lot of banks joining and actually wanted to execute phishing simulations in their company. So it's great. It should be also encourage you. That may just give you another area of consulting or consulting skills, working in the area of phishing and, of course, awareness, which is usually coming together. As I said, it's part of social engineering. That's why I really love it. It's, of course, obscuring. It's phishing. It's the preparation of phishing emails. It's a skill. And, of course, it's also in a form an art. Also, Rachel will talk to you about timing, what is important there. So you do have to think of a lot of things when you do actually phishing. And I did this with up to 12,000 people. How do you actually plan this? What are the problems? And of course, I will in the demo then towards the end also try to show you one of the professional phishing tools available. It's not that it's a sales pitch or whatever. I even won't tell you what tool it is. you might know it, and I worked with different tools in the professional phishing area. So I know some of them, not all of them. They have their flaws, they have their pluses, and look for yourself what you might apply in your daily consulting life, or you can use actually to expand your business or your services. Phishing is actually all about this. It's hiding in plain sight. It's kind of tricking or trying users to lure to click a link or to go some places. So we can apply many different techniques, actually coming from social engineering, of course, because the better the phishing email is, the easier it's maybe for you to send it out, but the harder it is to actually look at this phishing email. Of course, there are some difficulties with if you execute professional phishing in a way of, do you actually compromise logos or other companies' information? This is a huge discussion because, I mean, if you have really a hacking attack based on phishing emails, no one really cares. So they will use any logo of any company, copying the whole website, for instance, to do login phishing, for instance. So should you do the same in professional phishing, where you do have at least to have some kind of professional ethics? And this is the biggest, the intellectual property and all these areas. But I think it is possible, but it's also a must. You cannot just phish like all your phishing emails coming out of, let's say, professional consulting engagements, don't have any other logos, are only based on link phishing. So that might not work in the future. Then, as part of phishing, you do also have to look at raising awareness. Let's say all your employees, a couple of thousands or a dozen, it doesn't really matter. It's also part of it that you have to raise awareness. And typically, it's a combined approach. How I do phishing with my clients, corporate clients, is usually we talk about awareness, so it's education, and also about phishing. And here you see the three. This is basically you are seeing information. You can read information. You can read the policy, for instance. This is kind of like one of the stimuli you have to apply towards your employees, for instance. They need to see something. Then in the middle, with the laptop, representing experiencing. At the same time, it is very important. You can educate by seeing, but then also by experiencing. This is fantastic because if your employees can exchange email, for instance, and what's happening behind it, it gives them so much more than just seeing something or reading about it. And the third element, which is really important as well in raising awareness, is actually learning. You need to be able to learn. It's also a cultural thing. As you know, with information security, it's not just like technology or tools who will help you with this. So all these three elements are usually combined. When I do large phishing attacks, for instance, or we see it later, it's better called phishing simulations. And of course, they are combined with raising awareness, with education of awareness. Then the awareness method. So you do really have to think about, how do I reach my employees? How can I enable them to become smarter with phishing emails? How do they learn from it? So you actually have these different elements I have just been talking about. And of course, you have physically and visually. You can enrich them by putting posters or banner at different areas. You can use flyers and brochures. You can use giveaways. Of course, there could be phishing USB sticks, depending on the location and depending on your audience. So, for instance, you have a lot of students, you're a university, you can use different tools. If you're a bank, you use different tools, but physically and visually, you should support awareness. And you can do this during campaign or between campaigns. Then on the digital side, of course, you can use your LMS platform or targeting specific parts and the quiz, because the attention span of a typical user is quite low. They do not want to be bothered by something which is maybe longer than 30 minutes. 30 minutes is even quite long, so it should be even shorter than this. LMS means, in terms of, it could be a learning management system, or in case of this professional phishing tools, it's everything combined in those phishing tools. So it's a learning management system. It has an email server built in. It's everything usually in this one tool you buy. This is the learning area. Then for experiencing, of course, you use the phishing emails. You track those phishing emails accordingly. And you can use also USB sticks. You can even produce them with some of those professional phishing tools. So the user can really experience what's going on when he gets basically or receives a phishing email for that matter. Then one of the basic principles, and I'm just using this analogy because it's quite interesting. It shows you learning should be stimulated in different ways, but also it needs to be appropriate to your audience. And thinking dog, I don't know, of course we will have dog owners and we'll have cat owners here, but thinking dog is when is the appropriate time, or when is the right time to give your dog a treat? Because you are linking behavior to a positive experience with a treat. For instance, if your dog is chewing your keyboard away and you scold him, I don't know, half an hour later, when you discover it, it doesn't really matter what you say. The dog cannot relate this event, which is happening to him now, this negative experience with what happened half an hour ago. It's absolutely impossible. Also, for instance, you will have the situations with a dog when the dog is actually getting scared through maybe a noise or something else, and then at the same time he's watching a cat or he's watching another animal in the outside, in the perimeter of his view. Then he will link the bad experience with what he just saw. So I know people are not dogs, of course, no, but it's really important, and you can apply this while you're trying to do direct feedback. So instead of phishing and let the phishing pass to maybe just a timeout website, you can just give them immediate reference and say, okay, this was a phishing email. You can execute this training now. So that's one of the thoughts you have to put in a proper phishing campaign, I guess, but also in a security awareness campaign. Think dog. Think what your user will relate and what their attention span is, and they want to have everything instant. So if they have an email, it's a phishing email, give them instant feedback about it. Yeah, this was phishing. No, this was not phishing. This was phishing, and you clicked on a link, and now you might want to look at the video for 1 minute, or you want to execute an awareness training of some sort. Then one of the bits, it's probably the most boring bit for everyone here, but also I think I wanted to share this with you because it's actually also one of the most important bits. And Rachel will just talk later to you. Why is that? So here again, for very large phishing simulations, you do have to do like a small risk assessment. Of course, not always. It depends really on how much people you wanted to phish and how you wanted to phish them. But just think about on some of these points here as a hint what you might think of do. You just not create a phishing email and send it out to thousands of people. That won't give you good feedback, I tell you. But phishing, if you're a CISO, can really give you a lot of brownie points in management if you're doing it well and you have the right KPIs. Just let me give you a couple of ideas about some of the risks you might never have thought of when you do phishing attacks, for instance. So data leakage, of course, is one of them. Can be leaked if you put in wrong data in a phishing email. Phishing, typically, when I start, I do go through reports, yearly reports of a company. I go through their internal magazines. I go through their union papers, everything which is publicly available. I do have a picture at the end of this specific client or their business they're in, and I know what their next steps are. I know their strategic projects. And of course, I will then create phishing emails around those topics. For banks, it's about, engaging with new clients, takeover, for instance, Bitcoin, cybersecurity, cybercurrency, for that matter. And that's how I create very good phishing emails. But you can leak data if you do it the wrong way, of course. Then you will have insecure users, which basically means the users will get insecure because they're getting many phishing emails, don't know what to do, there is no policy or no process in place. And you should not support insecurity if you're hitting them again with very difficult to detect phishing emails, for instance. Then also you have to take care of triggering alarm systems, IDS and IDPS systems. So depending on how much the frequency of sending phishing email is, you might just trigger those systems and with it those alarms. And that could be a big problem. So you do have to test your phishing emails beforehand with a couple of insiders, with a test group before you go to the big phishing initiative with a couple of thousands of users. Then what could be happening, and indeed something similar happened. Some companies, when you have security incidents, they're automatically generating support tickets. That might be not a problem, just it could be that help desk will be overwhelmed by all those support tickets. You won't have enough staff to go through all these tickets. And it depends, there are certain services company are using where you pay actually per support ticket. And of course, that would be very bad. If you are generating thousands of support tickets and then your client has to pay them to the third party. Of course, you can reach an agreement there, but still, something probably you wouldn't have thought of, I guess. SLI compromise. If you do through your phishing attacks, large-scale phishing attack, compromise the service level agreements between your client and third-party provider for data center or the network or maybe in applications, you could also get into real trouble. So make sure that you test beforehand and also during the campaign, constantly monitoring the impact of your phishing campaign. Then what is happening with emails that get forwarded? We have that too a lot, especially if it's like some competition and winning iPads and other stuff. They get forwarded to their relatives, to their family, etc. You get these clicks, you get the links, you have them maybe inputting data in your phishing tool. So think about this beforehand. What is happening if you get a lot of this forwarding to maybe privately forwarded emails? Wrong recipients, of course, that's a standard error. Bulk send or mailstorm, if the system is not working correctly, that could well be that your phishing email system, the professional one, is not working correctly and just sends out too many emails without spacing or some timing with it. And of course, really, I would say the worst part of it, if your employees are losing trust in email. If they would lose trust in email because it's only garbage, it's only spam, and they just get too much phishing emails. So you really have to think of what are you creating with your phishing simulation? Is it good? Will it work, for instance? Or do you create more problems than you actually solve? So I do advise to be very careful, especially with large phishing attacks. Discuss those points, maybe with the CISO, with the responsible person at the client, or just for yourself when you do engage in phishing attacks. Now, with closing, probably the most boring part of our presentation, I would like to hand over to Rachel, and Rachel will also talk to you about one specific phishing case, which is just highlighting what everything can go wrong and why it went wrong. Rachel, please come forward.
Okay. Thank you, Dom. So he has really talked about a lot of important things in Fission. I'd just like to give a small story of myself. I I think when I was a kid, I must have been a victim several times of phishing attacks, with so many emails. I didn't know what they meant. And then I grow up and then I find out that these things are actually traps. They're used to bait people to gain information. Anyway, just the background of this GoDaddy phishing case, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard about it. It's one of the most popular phishing phishing tests that made the news recently. It mostly made the news because a lot of people thought it was insensitive because of the timing. Just the background, the GoDaddy team, security team, sent out an email to their employees telling them they had a bonus for the pandemic, a $650 bonus, and required them to click a link and enter their information to be able to access this bonus. And a lot of employees, about 500 of them, clicked that link and entered their information. And only 2 days later, they got another email letting them know that it was a phishing test. A lot of employees were really angry about it because there was the pandemic happening and people were in a really sensitive position. And, the email really played to that's their position, the sensitive position that they were in, vulnerable position they were in. And GoDaddy had to come forward and send out an apology later. This particular case is interesting because on one hand, it was insensitive considering people are really very vulnerable, and with the pandemic, a lot of people are panicking, a lot of people are anxious, and a lot of people are looking for whatever support they can get, right? But on the other hand, a lot of people also thought about the fact that the criminals don't care about if people are vulnerable. As a matter of fact, they want to take advantage of that. While we have that, there are other methods that GoDaddy could have considered for their phishing test. And so, yeah, it's a really interesting case. You can tell that on one hand, they're trying to make sure their employees are can recognize phishing scams, and on the other hand, they hit too hard. One thing, a couple of observations from the emails you could tell was it was too well worded, which is the English, the grammar was really, really correct. And one way to spot most phishing emails, not all phishing emails, but one way to spot most phishing emails is they don't have like really great grammar. They make a lot of grammatical errors. Not all of them, but it's very rare to see a well-worded phishing email. So it was a little too tight for a phishing test, which is one thing that companies should take note of when they're performing phishing tests. They should give their employees some leverage, some indicators, a few indicators to let them be able to, give them something to be able to spot, to know that this is actually a phishing test. And those were the two things I noticed from the GoDaddy case. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Rachel. How would you feel if you get such an email around Christmas promising you a bonus and then just find out it's just a phishing email?
Well, personally, if I got an email from a company I was working for saying there was a bonus, I would find it a little suspicious that they didn't just hand out the bonuses. And, considering it's a company I work for, they have my account details and everything. I would wonder why they need me to fill my details again into a link, right? Mm-hmm. So personally, I would find that suspicious, but not everybody thinks about that.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. I'm really torn with this one. On one hand, of course, you wanted to simulate real-world phishing attack, and this is a real-world scenario. But on the other hand, you really kind of, I don't know, dismotivate your staff. And I would say, what genius has thought of this, insensitive phishing attack? So I don't really know. I'm not sure. It's of course from both sides. It's positive and negative, but I don't really like this cowboy mentality, and I do not think, because in the really at the inner thing, I think the job is with phishing and awareness to advance your employees, give them education and give them the tools. And if you just you want to have a sword fight with someone who has never had a sword in his hand, that's kind of, asymmetric in nature. So yeah, it's a typical case, and a lot of them happened. But I'm really not sure with that one. I think I would just buy on the dark web a DDoS attack, and that will be my answer to this phishing attack. But yeah, well, no, I will advance my side now.
Yeah. Okay, so basic phishing attacks. We know the regular phishing where you send out the deceptive, you can send it out via email, which is the most popular method of sending out phishing traps. So you can send out that. And spare phishing. Spare phishing is more specific. With spare phishing, you're targeting a particular person and you're sending it to that particular person to get information or to create that awareness and train that person. And whaling, on the other hand, targets high value individuals, like CEOs, like executives, and bigger fish, literally because a whale is a bigger fish. So yes, those are the basic phishing techniques that are popular and that people use often. For regular phishing, you can maybe use link phishing, where you put a link where the person clicks the link, and then you can also use form phishing, where you create a form and the person has to fill in their information into the form. And so, yeah, next slide, please. Now, there's a common saying that humans are the weak in security, and we disagree. I feel like humans are the strongest link in security. If they're trained, if they have enough awareness, they can be the strongest link. They can be the link that keeps the company or the organization secure. Because with well organized phishing training, security awareness trainings, the employees get used to these things, and they can easily spot it when they see it, and it's easier for them to avoid these attacks. And so strengthening your employees is one point that most organizations should consider. They shouldn't look at it in the sense that their employees are the weak link, and they shouldn't blame attacks on the employees. And they should also encourage them, because say, for example, in the GoDaddy test, we only heard about the employees who had to retake the security training because they failed the test. We didn't hear about the other employees who didn't fail the test. So incentives for those who passed the test is a way to encourage more employees to follow the security training and to be better, to be safer on the internet. So yeah, next.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I couldn't agree more, because I do think people are the strongest link, actually. And as you just said, with the GoDaddy campaign, actually that person that didn't click on the email is probably the most lazy person in the company, because he's not reading email or just deleting all of them. So it's not really just some food for thought. Thanks for that part, Rachel. Now I will go again, a bit more into the structure of phishing campaigns, into the crafting of it, in the crafts around it, because I think it's very important. And of course, as InfoSec professionals, you do really need to engage with this type of testing methods and training methods. So I will give you a couple of hints around planning. So first planning step, of course, are creating the phishing template or the payloads. Depending if you work with tools, of course, everything is much easier working with phishing templates because you have predefined phishing templates. Although I have to say, if I do phishing, usually the phishing templates I create from scratch. So even there's the tool available and it's all in the tool, in these different tools you can buy, I create them from scratch because they're usually much better. Also, they are much more targeted towards like the company I'm working for. If it's bank and finance, I can go into compliance of bank and finance. I can go into data center or infrastructure. And phishing email crafting is not that much, let's say, of an effort. It's usually one page you write, but you need to write the right page, I guess, for that matter. And it's just more like the angle you are using. I've done different phishing emails with like last name, first name, everything in it, which you say is a clear sign of phishing attacks, so it wouldn't be visible. But they worked equally good. I had like, which I just said, to whom it may concern, to all the employees, and that they worked equally well with like phishing emails which were highly personalized for that instance. Then after the creation of the phishing template or the payload, you go into the tracking of the initiative, and of course you either assign or not trainings modules with it automatically, because it becomes very cumbersome if you work with a couple of thousand users. Just running after them is a nightmare because you have out of office, the email extract you're receiving is wrong. You will have problems with international code page, like letters with the double dots on the names and so on, which not translating into the tool. So there is a lot of work involved if you have a lot of users you want to phish. Of course, after it, it's expected you deliver a detailed report and evaluation of the campaign. What went well, what went bad, clicks, the amount of clicks. It's not a good KPI. Just let me emphasize this. Clicks is not a KPI. You cannot say we had 1,000 users, we had a phishing simulation, and we had a 10% click rate. Click rate says nothing because you need one click and everything is done. So click rate is not a good KPI. You need to define other KPIs you can work with and plan it. Of course, during the campaign, you're constantly watching the campaign. I, for instance, sometimes will be at the client side, or I will be logged into the tool and checking the phishing emails, if they're out of office replies, if they have a lot of help desk requests. Because there are users out there, you won't believe, will just pick up the phone if they have such a phishing email, for instance, call help desk and let them know they should inform the rest of staff there's a phishing email, a fishy phishing email, for instance, around. So it's amazing sometimes also the positive responses you get because you are not just phishing for bad responses or clicks, of course. Something has to do with the lingo. If you work there, it's usually quite not seen well if you're presenting a proposal for phishing, if you're using the word attacks in it. It's the same with hacking. It's researching. It's not hacking. Very important to know. It's better for the budget. So use phishing simulation as the lingo. Do not use phishing attacks. It kind of just puts people off, gives them the wrong impression. Their cinema in their head just plays the wrong pictures. It's phishing simulation. You are simulating phishing attacks. You are not attacking people. It's not a shark attack. So very important. One thing I wanted to share with you from experience about the lingo if you're engaging in this type of activity, of course. Then we just continue with some of the boring part, or hopefully not, planning. Because this is a planning examples for roughly 12,000 users, end users, and the customer wanted to have it spread over 1 year, and he wanted to have 3 types of attacks, which Rachel was actually talking about. So he wanted to have the standard phishing, like the phishing going to everyone, the standard phishing, the same phishing, nothing customized specifically. He wanted to have this in waves, so one of these phishing emails from us each month, standard phishing, nothing special. Of course, beforehand, we had a milestone and we did some testing for around 2 months, how the phishing email behaves, how does it go through the filters, through the security systems, and how does it end up at the end users' desks or laptops or smart iPads, phones, whatever they had. Then the second initiative was actually he did wanted to have specifically whaling phishing simulation. Whaling was targeted to high-value people within his organization, specific ranks and orders, and he wanted to have 2 of them, which each one went for 8 weeks. So there we singled out all these particular persons, crafted very highly customized and personalized phishing attacks to them. For those ones also, of course, we tested beforehand with a group of test users before we actually sent these phishing emails out. And then as a third wave, he wanted to have like spear phishing attacks, targeting specific areas of his business, like a department, like a specific area. And also for those ones, they were more customized just because of the area, not to persons or ranks. And that was a whole year which has been planned. So for phishing, you would just then add, of course, also the awareness part of it. You need to plan the awareness as well. When do get people the phishing email? When do they get maybe some education, helping them grow? Because it's a cultural topic, but also it's a learning topic, detecting these phishing emails. Just give you an idea of how you would build up this phishing, because you need to think about the context, the length, the duration, and also you cannot just send out too many phishing emails, because it could be that you overwhelm your help desk organization. Then
Okay.
back to Rachel.
Yes. Okay. One decision you can think about or consider when you're planning your phishing simulation is if you want to cold phish. That if you want to throw up the simulation first before you train your employees, that's called cold phishing. Basically, you send out the simulation first, see how they react to that, and then you train them, or you train them and then you test them out using a simulation. Usually, if I'm planning a phishing attack, I'll go with cold phishing. I would say that because cold phishing gives you an idea of how much they know about phishing first, and then when you're planning your training event, you know what areas to look into, you know what areas to educate them about. It gives you that idea of what to train them about. But obviously, when you're planning your phishing simulation, you can use whichever one at your discretion, right? You can also decide if you want to use link phishing. Like I said before, link phishing, you attach a link, and if they click the link, it would show up in your whatever app you're using to go your phishing simulation. And payloads are basically when you attach goodies to goodies like pictures. It could be a picture, it could be a video, it could be an APK, whatever. When you attach those to your phishing simulation exercise as well. So these are just other things to consider when you're planning your phishing simulation. Next slide, please. Now, when to phish. This is an important aspect. Most people don't think about when to phish. To get the most accurate response, or to get the effect you want, you need to consider when to phish. Timing is really important. Usually people are more susceptible to click on phishing links after work hours, because they're going home, they're thinking of other things, they're not thinking about work, and it wouldn't accord to them. So usually maybe weekends or during the holidays, or basically after work. And also when they're away from support system. Generally, phishing attacks are more effective when they can't reach out to their other employees. They're not in the office space, so they can ask. If they receive an email, they can go to the next person and ask, oh, did you get this email? Is this an authentic email? So those are the best times to plan phishing simulation attacks. Or phishing simulation. I mean, Dom said we shouldn't call them attacks. So those are the best. That's the best time to plan phishing simulations for employees. So yes, next slide, please. So we have a little game. I'm not sure if we have time for that. Do we have time for that?
I think we can show it quickly, and then
Okay.
I guess, yeah. But I have to stop screen share and go into the file. So
okay.
Just a sec.
Okay.
Now it's up.
Okay. I would go to Twitch now just so I can see the responses. It's just a small game to test how much we've learned about phishing so far. I mean, we've heard about phishing a lot in this conference, so I guess we have an idea by now. So the first question is, what is phishing? And we have a couple of options here, if you can see the screen. So just put your answers in the comment section, please. You can just indicate with A, B, C, or D. Anyone? Any takers? Okay. Because of lack of time, I guess we'll just go with A for the first question. And the second question is, the most common methods for a phishing attempt would be by, so we have book, we have email, we have MP3 file, and we have neighbor. Okay, we have a few answers here. Okay. B. Someone says B. Okay, that was correct. Okay. Next question. What is the best way to prevent phishing from being successful? Ignore, report, destroy your computer, open attachments. Okay. We have two answers saying B. So let's go with B. Okay.
Too bad. I think we need to continue.
Yes. Yes.
So, yes, thanks very much, Rachel. I think if you want, you can probably post the link. It's a general link, also in the channel. And that's actually a part of the tool, of the phishing tool, so you can raise awareness with your users. You can send this to your users to raise actually awareness.
Okay.
So, then let's continue. So I just give you now, I will speed up a little bit because of the time which is left, give you some ideas about a phishing tool. What are the reporting capabilities? What can you get out of it, or what you should report? Here is just like a report about the training, about the questions in the training. The one you just saw is from the phishing tool, actually. It tells you the users have been answering these questions right or wrong. And based on this, you can then actually also adjust your training schedule. So if the same question gets wrong by everyone, you can see, okay, maybe we should improve this. This is just an example from one of those phishing tools. What you also can get here is like the click and the click rates of a phishing initiative, because of course it shows you detailed who has clicked first, last, when, between you had the most clicks and so on. On the right-hand side, there was a phishing initiative about Xing and the social media profiles. You can see here, like the most clicked between half and the first day. And actually, if you have looked at opening the emails, it was between 5 minutes and 30 minutes. That's why also phishing is so hard to fight, because you see you have minutes here, which organization can react within minutes. So the first one clicked within 5 minutes, probably the first one even within 0 to 5 minutes. Then you see it's changing a bit, and then you have the most of them click within a couple of hours. Usually a phishing initiative lasts or is effective between 1 and 2 weeks. After that, you will just have someone coming back from holidays or out of office or leave, and maybe clicking then on an email. But so a phishing initiative is usually active between 2 weeks. And you have a click rate normally between 10 and 30%, sometimes even up to 40. It depends. And of course, you can see who clicked. But as I just mentioned before, if one person clicks, then it's actually done. Then here, of course, very interesting also for all the privacy advocates. You can see, of course, where the person is who has clicked. Geolocation is available. Here, I had a really interesting discussion when I presented the results of this phishing initiative to the CISO, the CIO, and I think someone from compliance was also there. We discussed the clicks and click rates, and I did an interpretation in my view of these results. And as you can see here on the right-hand side, we had a click from Thailand. Then, of course, I followed this up. Why do we have a click in Thailand? Was it a forward? Was it, I don't know, what's happening there? And then all of a sudden, during the discussion, the CIO said he has a developer in Thailand, which was quite interesting because the CISO had no clue about it. So also there we discovered very interesting intel just with executing phishing attacks and kind of challenging where those clicks came from. Then just beware. Also during this phishing initiative, I was asked by one party of the company I should write a very, very hard to detect phishing email to a certain area of the company, to a specific area of the company. And I first thought, yeah, well, I like a challenge. I'm all up for, creating a really, really undetectable phishing email and get a click rate as hell, even like 40 or 50%. I never reached 50%, by the way, but kind of gets you competitive. But then I kind of figured out he wanted to misuse this report and this phishing initiative to basically look the other party or organizational part look bad because they have a high click rate, for instance. So you do really have to be careful about so many factors when you do phishing. You also have to make sure that in a way you protect the users. I see that as your job, executing phishing attacks. You have to protect the users. And if you see something which doesn't seem right, try to think outside the box. And what could that mean? Why would they want to do that? And at the end, I figured this out and say, well, look, there may be other ways to being competitive within your company. It's not necessary to make them look bad if they get high click rates from this phishing simulation, of course. That was just like another experience-based fact I wanted to forward to you, basically. I would like now go into a little bit of the demo, try to show you some of it. Let me see if that works, and then we will go into a Q&A session. Let me make that a bit bigger here. So we do have like this professional phishing platform. This is the demo platform, actually. Here you create everything. So as the phisher, basically. It's all in your hands. It's all basically in one box. It can be in a cloud. It can be locally. It depends a bit on the tools. You do have like in the settings, I just mentioned that before, you do have like templates, predefined templates. And this is also one of the facts why it's quite so successful. I do have like predefined templates I can use, particularly in the awareness area. And I do have them available in different languages because Switzerland has 4 official languages, and it's always, you have to have all those languages, and it's very expensive, of course, to create it. So if I have a tool at hand which works well, which has already the languages in it, I'm using it. So here in the tag templates, of course, you have all those templates available, hundreds of them. So you have available access, surveillance, bonus, Excel sheets. Then, of course, you can sort them by the type of the template you wanted to apply. It's file-based, web-based, hyperlink, awareness only, social media. And then you can sort those templates, select the one you would like to have. Down here, you can see the available languages. It's with those tools, it's always the same. They're available at least usually in 4 to 6 languages, which is fine, or then you can do translations for yourself. Here you can actually preview the message that gets sent out to the users. And you can either edit this message or you're creating basically your own message. Usually, as I mentioned before, with the attack templates, they're usually quite easy. I start writing them from scratch. Here are some interesting ones. Corona stuff, and that gets occasionally updated by these companies. Then we do have the awareness templates for education. So they're like 5-minute micro e-learnings. Use them usually for the executive management, which either you can say don't have a big attention span or don't have time. It depends how you want to define it, I guess. And they're also available in different languages, some of them maybe only in one. And then you can, of course, preview how it looks like, what the template is all about. There's maybe some videos, quizzes, all this information here. I will show you, can quickly show that to you. So you can have videos, which just plays a video for you, pre-recorded in your language, very handy, very easy. You can also have the quiz. Here you will see the quiz we just have been seen before. Let me see why I can't see it. It's game here. So here is this security expert game. It's quite, people like that here in Europe, I guess, Switzerland. I don't know how is it in your countries. And you select one of those you wanted to use. So it's very easy. You can also have posters or training libraries. It's all available. Then, of course, the strength is of those tools, you can just easily create campaigns for phishing, click yourself through. Here is the one created basically for this quiz you have seen, who's becoming a millionaire in English, I guess. And here you define everything. You're importing the users, you're customizing the email server, etc. It's all done within the tool itself. Also, of course, you can then schedule the sending of the emails, etc. But also you have then the statistics, messages sent out, emails accepted, emails opened. You can see in here all I showed you before, geolocation, click rates, etc. It gives you very nice reporting for management, but also you can see how your phishing actually spreads, how fast and to whom. And then, of course, you can build your security posture around it. Then those tools are really make your life a bit easier, of course. A fool with a tool is still a fool. You have to be careful what you do. Here is just in the latest release, basically, of this particular phishing and awareness tool. There is smishing in there. Smishing. Let me just go back quickly to the different campaigns you can actually start, to the templates, attack templates. Oops, sorry, I'm a bit clumsy. Attack templates. or in the campaign you start. Sorry, there's a lag. Yeah, you can have this attack. Rachel was talking about that one. So you can have an attack simulation. You can educate your employees. You can do some other stuff like infrastructure tests. And there is some other security measures in place as well, like phishing button for Outlook and other stuff. But if you click attack simulation, you can go one step further, and we see here like link phishing. And link phishing is preferred because it's the easiest method of phishing. So before you do any sophisticated, elaborated phishing attack, you're using a link phishing and see what is happening with this email. Is it getting detected? Is it getting blocked? Does it look fancy on the customer's clients, etc.? So you do a link phishing. That's what's on the top right here. You can have the data entry attack, file attack. You can create the portable medias here, and you can also do smishing. So instead of creating a phishing email, you can really easily do a smishing attack. So instead of the email, it sends you a text. So this one I prepared because of time. Now let me see how I can share my phone with you in some way or form. So yeah, it's this virtual background, I guess, right? See if, now you can probably see it. So I start now this attack, smishing attack. It's of course, I must be aware of the phone number of this person. You start it. It will take a while. And then hopefully when the screen changes of the phone, it will be visible to you. You should also hear it. Yeah, so now you got the smishing text, the CDC text. I can then open it. You can see that very bad, very bad. I can then open the text. I get basically a text message, which then forwards me with the link to the Many Heads Club website. So it is very easy for you operating basically out of those tools. They work very similar, all of them, creating these phishing emails. But also it shows you it's quite a problem because, as I said, a fool with a tool is still a fool. That's why maybe you got these phishing emails out there. You have to be careful and conscientious about what you're actually doing. So in this respect, I will close now. And now we would be available for you, I guess, for some questions.
Thank you very much, Dominic and Rachel. I'm just quickly checking. We are pretty much on the mark to see if we have one question. Just give me one moment. Yeah, well, we've unfortunately run out of time. However, we will post a question in the Discord.